Welcome to Write with Love. I'm your host, Sarah Williams, bestselling author, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. Each week, I chat to passionate and inspiring authors about their journey in creative writing. Some are traditionally published, some do it themselves. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone has something interesting to say. We all love love and love what we do. Today's show is brought to you by our amazing fans and supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the show and get some awesome bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/Sarah Williams Author to learn more. Now here's today's show. G'day, I'm Sarah Williams. Thanks for joining me for episode 29 of Write with Love. Today's episode is all about me because this past Wednesday I launched my latest novel, The Sky Over Brigadier Station, which I'm going to show you on my e-reader. There we go. Unfortunately, I don't have the print copy just yet. There's a little bit of a hold up. Thanks, Australia Post. Love your work. So that one went to launch on Wednesday, the 4th of July. And it's had some really brilliant reviews, and I'll read some of those in a little bit. I did a Facebook Live on Wednesday night, Australian time. It was so nerve-wracking, the first time I've ever done a Facebook Live, and I learned a lot from the experience, so hopefully the next time I do it will be a little bit better. We also had a power cut right at the very end. It's school holidays and it was just before bedtime, so my kids were all watching things on their iPads and stuff like that. So our power board obviously didn't handle it very well and cut out. So thank you to everyone who did watch and who commented and asked me questions and congratulated me and everything like that, and who hung around when I did my second little bit at the end. So some of the questions that I was asked or things that we talked about, I will talk about again in today's podcast. So this is the third novel that I've written, and it's the second in my Brigadier Station series. So we met Lockie and Darcy Maguire in my first book, The Brothers of Brigadier Station, which I also just happen to have here. That one there, the pretty cover that's also in the background. So that one was published in May 2017. And so at this time in The Sky Over Brigadier Station, we get to meet the youngest brother, who is Noah. So the blurb for it goes, Noah Maguire stayed away from Brigadier Station for a reason. He spent a decade in New Zealand's South Island trying to forget his past. But the memories still haunt him, and the last thing he wants to do is see his estranged family and attend his brother's wedding. However, the only way he can collect his inheritance is if he returns to his family's property and faces the demons he's been hiding from. When it comes to rounding up hundreds of cattle in a day, doing so by horseback doesn't do the trick quite like a helicopter does, and Riley Sinclair is one of the best pilots in the country. It's a dangerous job, but she has nothing to lose until she meets Noah and her bravery is finally tested. So it's the second in the season, but it can also be read as a standalone, and like the first one, it's set in Julia Creek in the isolated Queensland outback. So thank you so much, and I just want to read a quick review that came in. So this one's from Teresa. A real heartfelt emotional read, an intense storyline with plenty of raw, rough, grueling edges that will forever open the reader's heart and eyes. A heartbreaking read that keeps you on edge, burning through the pages, hoping, needing the happily ever after to pull you from the emotionally havoc the gripping drama puts you through. A myriad of emotions, engrossing twists, intense, enjoyable, and moving passion-filled chemistry. An absolutely amazing must read. Thank you so much, Teresa. I really appreciate that one. So there you go. You can get The Sky Over Brigadier Station. It's available in ebook from all the major platforms and in print. Digitally, print on demand, and it should be available in most Australian libraries towards later in the year when I get organised and do that. So just a little bit about me. Of course, I normally start these interviews saying, so tell us about yourself and your journey to publication. So here we go. So I grew up on a organic kiwi fruit orchard in Hawke's Bay, the lovely wine region of Hawke's Bay in the North Island of New Zealand. And I have a brother and my parents, and we lived in this orchard. And there wasn't much to do growing up, and everywhere involved having, a 20-minute drive into town. So I was always intrigued by storytelling, and I loved watching TV shows and movies. In New Zealand in the 80s, it was mostly American TV shows. So I was a big fan of things like Beverly Hills 90210 and Melrose Place, Friends, those sorts of things. But I also loved reading. And when I was a teenager, I, like most of us writers with mums who read as well, I went and raided my mum's romance bookshelf, which consisted of things like Danielle Steele. So I loved reading the Danielle Steele novels, and of course I watched her movies when they became, minisodes and those sorts of things on TV. I would stay at home, and on the weekends or, holidays, I'd be watching the soapies with my mums, The Days of Our Lives, The Bold and the Beautiful, that sort of thing. So, of course, all romantic. And so I would just start making up my own stories because we didn't have Netflix and all those sorts of things. So when I couldn't be watching TV or reading a book, I would be making up my own stories. So endlessly long bus rides to school and that sort of thing. I would make up these stories. And then by the time I was in high school, my best friend was loving me telling her these stories. So she'd ask me at lunchtime, so what story have you made up today? So I'd tell her the story that I've been thinking about all morning. And then over lunchtime, we'd be like, oh, she could do this or he could do that. And they were always romantic because we were going through puberty and boys were, what we were interested in at the time. So that's how it all kind of started. And my dad, I said to him when I was 14, hey, Dad, I want to move to America because, Hollywood, and I want movies and I want to be a screenwriter or a director or something like that. And so that was the first thing I wanted to do. And I said, well, if I can't be a screenwriter, I really want to just write novels. And he said to me, well, that's all well and good, but, do you want to maybe do journalism? I said, no, I don't want to do journalism. Not interested. It's got to be fiction. And he said, okay, well, if you're going to write fiction, it's still based on real people and real situations. So go and get some life experience. He said, if you want to go to America, that's fine. Go and have a great life and get some experience and really take things in and watch people and learn. And then you can be a writer. Okay, so I took that on board. My dad's pretty smart, so I thought I'll do that. And so when I was 17, I finished school in New Zealand. I didn't go all the way, I just finished. And I went on a student exchange to the United States, and I went to North Carolina, just near Charlotte. And that was great because I was also a fan of Dawson's Creek at the time, and that's exactly where it was filmed, in Wilmington, North Carolina. So that was wonderful, and I did see a lot, and I love America. That was 1999 to 2000. I graduated high school in America in 2000. Got to see a lot of the country, fell in love with it. We went up to New York, we went to Washington, we went to Florida. I'd been to America a couple of times before that too. And so then I was finished the exchange and I decided I wanted to go to university over there. So I applied to the University of North Carolina in Wilmington because they had this course which was all on American history and a big emphasis on Native American history. I love Native American culture, and I've always been a bit obsessed with Westerns and cowboys and Indians and that sort of thing. So I thought, well, I really want to do this university degree in Wilmington. And so I had to leave, obviously, because there were visa restrictions. So I left, but New Zealand just wasn't going to cut it. So I moved to Melbourne in Australia because New Zealand, once you've been out, is a very, very small country, especially back then before, technology really. So I was living in Melbourne in the city it took a while to try and get all these visas sorted out. And then 9/11, September 11th happened. And yeah, there was no way my visa was going to be approved after that. They pretty much cut them off. So I was kind of stuck with my backup plan. I was working at Officeworks, if anyone knows the stationery shop, having a fantastic time going out because I was legal to drink, which I hadn't been ever before, 18, thank God. And having a great time in the city, doing what my dad said, go out, meet people, do things, experience things, think about situations that you can write about later. So that was great. And I based myself in Melbourne for a few years and I travelled around Europe. I became a travel consultant in order to get my travel for very discounted or free. And so that was brilliant. I just had several years just seeing the world, seeing Australia. I've done all the major cities, Ayers Rock, Uluru, Darwin, Western Australia. I've seen pretty much all of it. And then I had enough of the freezing cold Melbourne winters, so I decided to move to Cairns. And at that point, writing was one of those things I was like, yeah, I'm going to get around to it. And, when I'm in my 30s or 40s and I've got the kids and maybe a husband who can support me or something like that, that's when I'll write. So I decided I wanted to go and wrestle some crocodiles because that was my latest infatuation, was crocodiles after a trip to Darwin. So I decided to move to Cairns and I ended up in tourism again. And I was working, one of my jobs there was I worked at a helicopter company and I would, book people on these tourist flights over to the Great Barrier Reef and doing day tours and just flights, scenic flights. And I got to meet all these amazing pilots and talk to them about their careers and their training and all these sorts of things. And I just loved these helicopters. There were really big ones, 6-seaters, they were fantastic. They were called Squirrels. And one of my favourites, though, was the stinky little Robinson R44. And I really liked this. It was just a little 2-seater. It was very manoeuvrable, so it was really cool. And so I kind of stored all this information that I took on board and just put it in there. I might chuck a helicopter in a novel one day. Yes, I finally got there. So along the way, though, after I've done that, I tried to do the crocodile thing. Turned out you need a zoology degree, and that was like way too much university for me. So I said no. And then I met my husband while I was living in Cairns, and we got married, and then I got pregnant, and we decided to move to Townsville. We bought a business, and I was doing the admin for the business, and it just kind of ended up being that the admin for the business and the marketing and everything was only taking up kind of 50% of my time. The twins went off to kindergarten 3 times a week. So I was like, well, I've got some time now. Maybe I should write that book. So I started, nothing really fantastic. It was really just an experiment. And then I was reading the paper and they said, we're going to have the Savannah Festival, they called it. So it was a writers' festival. And there were a couple of people in there, no one that I really knew the names of at the time. And but one of the workshops that caught my interest was How to Write a Romance with Barbara Hannay. So I thought, well, it's in my town. Husband can look after the kids on the weekend and I'm going to go and do this. It was free. The council was paying for it. So why not? So I went to that and I met Barbara Hannay, who I've had on the show, and she is, one of those moments, meeting her, doing that workshop, light bulbs, left, right and centre. I want to write romance. I want to write rural romance like she writes, outback Australia, and I want to have a career like her. So I went home after that workshop, outlined the Brothers of Brigadier Station. It took 2 years to write, mostly part-time writing too, because I still had the kids and I was doing every single workshop online that was possibly available to learn the craft of writing and also some of the business. I decided once I had this book finished, I pitched it at the Romance Writers of Australia conference in 2016 in Adelaide. I pitched it to 3. I got full submission requests from these agents and publishers, and I went on, I pitched a couple of other places as well. And everyone was really, loved the story, and a couple for, it was too short or whatever, so that was fine. And then I did get sent a contract, which, just from the beginning felt wrong. And it was from a big publishing house, very reputable. I've got nothing against them, but the contract for me didn't fit. It was digital only and Australian only. And I just, I'm ambitious. If I'm going to do something, I want to go big and I want to make lots of money. And so I turned it down and I decided to go indie. So I continued to learn everything I possibly could before launching The Brothers at Brigadier Station. Got a few nice little sales coming through, but I didn't put a lot of effort into it because everything that I was reading said, wait until you've got more than one book out until you start spending any money on the advertising. So that's what I did. I had a great writer's group in Townsville at that time. And so we all started writing these novellas. So I wrote The Outback Governess, which I have here, which I published in November last year. I call it's the sound of music without the religion and the singing. So I put that one out in November. And I put it down for 99 US cents. So I had over 1,000 pre-orders in the 30 days that I had it in pre-order. And so that was like, oh, this looks like it's going to do pretty well. And by the time that one launched, it really did. Like my sales from The Outback Governess just played into my sales of The Outback Governess, which have since played into my sales for this one. So it was definitely one of those pieces of advice that I'm really glad I listened to. So I've got the 3 out now. I've also, in my spare time earlier this year, I decided to put out Your Creative Journal, which is this one here. This is only available via my website. You've got to email me if you want a copy. But basically there's some blank pages. There's lots of pretty things you can colour in. There's some advice. So there's one of those. That's the adult version there, if you're interested. They're 20 Australian dollars. And that's the children's version, because I was writing the first one, and my 10-year-old, who's also interested in writing and technology and all sorts of things. He helped me with the podcast, actually. He said, Mum, can you do one of those for me? Because that looks really cool. I said, yeah, sure, okay. So I altered some of the information, made it a little bit shorter, and did that for him as well. So if you're interested in either of those, you have to go to my website and send me an email, and we'll sort that out. And so technically I've written 5, but 3 are novels, so I'm going with that. The Sky Over Brigadier Station, like I said, is the second in that series. I'm going to finish off the series next year. I've got at least two more books planned. Of course, the next one has to be Lockie's Journey to Happily Ever After. And I have a really interesting idea that I want to put into that one. But it's simmering at the back of my mind because I'm about to start, when school holidays finish in a week, I'm about to start a book which will be based here. See, we ended up moving at the end of last year. We moved to Mullaney in the Sunshine Coast, which is just an absolutely beautiful subtropical location. And I adore this running. It's just beautiful, and the people are lovely. And there's lots of dairy farms and dairy cows. So I have this great idea for a book, and I'm writing that one, which will be out before Christmas. So stay tuned on that. And then, of course, I'll go back into the Brigadier Station series next year. So that'll be great fun. The Brothers of Brigadier Station has been free digitally for the last week. So I hope you, if you hadn't read it, you'd already picked up a copy. If you didn't, too late. Now you have to pay for it again. Sorry. So as well as writing and running the podcast and Serenade Publishing, I also run writers' workshops, and I do some speaking as well. And of course I've got the 4 kids at primary school, so I am pretty busy, but I do some mentoring as well and some business consultancy. So that's all listed on my website as well if anyone is interested, but I do like to keep myself busy. In 2017, of course, I published those two books, The Outback Governess and The Brothers Brigadier Station, and I was nominated for the 2017 Best Debut Australian Author for the AusRom Today, and also for the ARA, which is the Australian Romance Readers Association. So I got nominated twice for 2017. So that was really great. That's nice to be recognised by the readers. So some of the questions that came up in our Facebook Live the other day, people were asking me, why do I write short novels? So my books average between about 40 and 60,000 words. That's simply because I am busy and I like things that play out kind of like a movie. So I always like to think, well, if, Steven Spielberg or someone like that wanted to put it into a movie, which I would love, by the way, what would they have to edit out? And I didn't want them to have to edit anything out because everything that's in there is important. And so I thought, well, I'd rather write a book that only takes 4 or 5 hours to read and, keeps a fast pace. So that's what I've tried. And all the feedback that I've had is that's what I do. So that's fantastic. It takes me roughly 6 months to write a novel. So that's preparation, planning, writing the first draft, and editing it and uploading it. So it's about 6 months. That's why I only put 2 out a year. I'd love to be faster, and I am getting faster. I've definitely noticed that. So who knows, maybe one day it will be 4 a year. That would be awesome. My writing process is I use Scrivener, which if you're an author, you probably know what Scrivener is. So I use Scrivener to plot and do my first drafts. I also use Dragon Dictation. So I read everything, I say it, and that's all transcribed into my Scrivener format via Dragon Dictation. And then I use Vellum to upload it in all my different formats. So if you're a writer and you're interested in any of those, I do have links via my Tools for Writers page on my website, so you can go to that, and there are affiliate links, so you'll be helping me out. I started Write with Love last year, which is obviously my weekly podcast where I interview a different author each week and we talk about their journey to publication. At the moment, those are all either romance or strong romantic elements in their books, and so that goes out every Monday morning, and it's on YouTube and it's on podcatchers. It also gets transcribed. So if you're on my mailing list, you'll get an email on about the Wednesday afterwards, and that'll all have the transcription in there as well. So I'm having great fun with that. Almost 30 episodes so far, so that's brilliant. And I really enjoy that because I know a lot of these authors and I really wanted to talk to them and learn more about them, what makes them tick, what inspires them, all those sorts of things. So I've got some interesting people coming up like Nalini Singh, Grace Burrows, Avril Tremaine, Helene Young, and Bella Andre will be on the show when I get to interview her live. And that's going to be from the Romance Writers of New Zealand conference, which is in August, a little over a month now. So I'm loving going, the idea of being able to go back to New Zealand and go and see this amazing Kiwi conference that I've been hearing so much about for the last few years. And I'm finally going, so I'm totally excited about that. And of course, the week after the Romance Writers in New Zealand is the Romance Writers of Australia conference, which I have attended the last 2 years. I'm only going to the cocktail party this year because of other commitments. And of course, I've just been to New Zealand, so I can't do everything. Unless you want to be a Patreon supporter and help me out with all these airfares. But I'll be at the cocktail party. So if you're there, come and say hi. I'll dress up in whatever the theme is. I can't remember now. But there are some big names going there, and Maisie Yates is going to be there, and I love her. She writes American Westerns, or country-inspired small town. And I'm booked in to interview her too on the Friday. So that's why I'm going to be there. So that will be fantastic. Somebody asked, who would I love to interview the most? And that was pretty easy. I would love to interview Diana Gabaldon from Outlander fame. Oh my God. I would love to pick her brain. I'm sure I would just fangirl like crazy because I absolutely am in love with Jamie Fraser. And I know a lot of us are. And I just adore the relationship that she wrote between the hero and the heroine. I don't even know how she did that, and I can't say they're such a good couple, because there's it's just so well thought out that I love it. So I would love to pick her brain and chat to her. So if anyone has any contacts to Diana Gabaldon, get her to contact me. I've emailed her. Trust me, I've tried. But I would absolutely love to have Diana on the show. I think that would be brilliant. So I think that's pretty much wrapping it up. I just thank you all for watching the show over these past few episodes, and I've got some amazing, huge names coming up, so please do stick around and keep listening. It's less than 30 minutes, so yep, do that. You can find me online via my website, which is sarahwilliamsauthor.com. I have a Readers of Sarah Williams group on Facebook, so feel free to request to join that group. I'd love you to. Write with Love has a new Facebook page. It's Write with Love. So go on that. Give us a like. And I'm personally also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well. So if you go via my website on my Facebook page, you can join my mailing list, which will give you the weekly podcast notes. And it'll update when I have something coming out. Usually once a month I'll talk about something. And I like to review other authors and talk about if I've read anything good, and any promos or updates that are going on. So if you do enjoy a book, the best thing you can do for an author is leave a review on Goodreads, Amazon. Those are the main ones. iBooks, Kobo as well, helpful. So leave a review, recommend it to someone. It's the absolute best thing you can do for an author that you love. So coming up next week on the show, I've got Rita nominee Amy Andrews, who's an Aussie, who just lives up in Rockhampton now. And so, yeah, she's nominated this year in the Ritas. So that will be a really, really great show, I reckon. And, of course, that's going to be tying in. It'll be Romance Writers of America Week. So it will be all fun. And thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you enjoyed this little look into my life and my journey to publication. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Jump onto my website, sarahwilliamsauthor.com, and join my mailing list to receive a free preview of my books and lots of other inspiration. If you like the show and want it to continue, you can become a sponsor for just a couple of dollars a month. Go to patreon.com/Sarah Williams Author. And remember to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a review of the podcast. I'll be back next week with another loved up episode. Bye!